Hiya Hinsters, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome too. My name is Hinny. I am a spiritual astrologer, and I'm back with a series, or part one of a series on Saturn through the houses. And I'm wearing my sunglasses. I don't really need my sunglasses. It is currently 9 p.m. here, but I thought I might wear them as I just got back from a little drinksy winksies with my Capricorn rising bestie, and we are going to talk about Saturn, and we're going to talk about feigned appearances. Why? Because Saturn rules feigned appearances, and Saturn is exalted in the cardinal air sign of Libra, the Venus ruled masculine sign Libra. Did you know that is the Disneyland of Saturn? And yeah, I'm going to get a little bit into Saturn. First of all, what Saturn is, and then I'll pop some timestamps below for you. And I'm only going to do the first house through to the fifth house for this part, so you'll have to wait a wee bit for the rest, houses 6 to 12. But I do hope you enjoy, you resonate. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you like what I do, or don't, it's up to you, boo. And by the time you see this video, I'll be out of London, so there's that too. You can get in touch with me if you'd like a reading as well, but I will not be doing any readings between the 20th and the 26th. So keep that in mind. 20th and 26th of June. You can still book a reading during that time, especially if you're a Cancer and you want to take advantage of my Cancer season discount, which I always offer to Cancer Suns and Cancer Risings. That's 50% off my rate. You can still, I repeat, get that rate, that discount. You can still book during the 20th and the 26th. I just can't do readings during that time. We can have your reading after, not before, because it's the 19th today, so I highly doubt we can do it before. But anyway, let's get into it. Saturn, the God, the Father, the primal, like the son of the primal God of the sky, and the son of the Mother Terra, or goddess of the earth. So pretty prominent God, right? And Saturn is associated with the number 7. Hence, also the exaltation in the sign of Libra. Saturn is very often portrayed, or is like an archetype of the chariot rider being pulled by a crow or a black bird, a vulture, or several horses. We get with Saturn the god of justice, karma, retribution. The Saturn return is very often seen or presented as this karmic recalibration moment. That's between your age of 27 and 30, roughly, that return. And also Saturn is associated with that which is those who are lame-legged, limp, crippled. It is associated with dark skin, dark complexions, black clothes, penance, unfair treatment by fathers, abandonment by the father, being eaten, yes, by the father. And also Saturn is associated kind of with giving a fair chance, actually, and not punishing before it is too soon in some cases. So what I'm trying to say is Saturn will kind of let us experience and act and decide, and then at the end of that timeline make a decision. So we're given time, given chances, similar to Pluto. If you're interested, I'll make a video on the god Pluto and Pluto in astrology. But also we get anyway here with Saturn, the ostracized, and those who are like cursed to live on the outside of the galaxy somehow. And also we get here other black animals like black dogs, black cats, and this association of like reaping good if you treat them good, and even sometimes like curing illness or chronic ailments. We get with Saturn discipline, humility, focus, patience, hard work. By the way, I made a video on Saturn in Pisces, the retrograde that has begun right now as I speak in Pisces. And also I did a video on the Saturn return in Pisces for those of you going through your Saturn return. So that means you're like 27 to 30 years old. And we get generation here. We get here dissolution and wealth and liberation. Actually, Saturn is associated with liberation and conspicuousness. And also Saturn rules things like the fish-tailed, the mer goats, the mer people, and corn and wine as well is an association that we have with Saturn. And sowing, by sowing I mean like sowing seeds. So again, input, putting effort in or making those decisions, those judgments first, and then there comes something back. There is something reaped. Also, Saturn is the hidden. Saturn is mysteries. Saturn is the giver and perfecter of happiness. I would associate Saturn also kind of with the Six of Cups in the Tarot, the intergenerational passer on of things, the giver of things that will make us happy and grateful. And Saturn is kind of like the sun. Yes, oddly, Saturn is kind of like a second sun, or the anti-sun, or the concrete moon, associated kind of in the ancient sense as the star that was always, because it's so slow moving, but always there in the background, while the sun and definitely the moon were more unreliable to the eye. So that's kind of a little gisty-wisty on Saturn. Let's look then at Saturn in the first house. So this is Saturn rising. We have here crocodile spirit. Yes, we have the farmer. We've got the clock keeper, the pessimistic realist. This is Deutschland vibes. If you're Saturn rising, quite likely you really just vibe with the Germans. Germanic stuff. This is also Cher, like the singer Cher, like vampire energy, and like a lot of Capricorn risings as well as Saturn risings have just great skin, a glow, way into their 50s, 60s, 70s. Also, Saturn rising people, Saturn in the first house, can give a darker aura somehow. That doesn't have to be physically or literally. A personality that is darker or gloomier or more serious. It is the severe person. It makes them austere. Not quite here as well, because Saturn is like the interstice keeper, the guardian on the edge of the galaxy, right? Kind of ostracized, and so not quite here, and can very well hear. Saturn rules Capricorn, the goat, the balancer of the ears, very good with the ears. Saturn ascendants, and also Saturn ascendant people make excellent supervisors or bosses or conductors. We have here also keepers of the tides. If you're a Capricorn rising, by the way, you might really like to watch my video on Capricorn rising or the keeper of the tides. Also, you're kind of fair shoe shiner, and this sort of connects to what I was saying earlier with the Six of Cups in the Tarot. Saturn does kind of shine or polish the shoes of those people, those topics, those spaces that are deserving, and there is this fairness element to Saturn. Actually, Saturn ascendant people are the old soul. They can be miserable. They can be melancholic. They can also be not a very big eater. Yet, conversely, some of them will be avaricious and have this fear of missing out. So that could be like in the food eating sense, but also in the relational sense or other energetic sense. They have this fear of missing out, and so can be very consuming or pursuing or pushy even. Saturn ascendant people are cutting, precise, acute, concise, and harsh. They are the truly constant ones as well. They are like the rock, the lighthouse as well. And this is seagull spirit. We've got here the cynical one, the real one, the hardy one, and things like Schadenfreude. So kind of enjoying the suffering or pity of others, or the pitiful situation of others, or the suffering of others. There can be that kind of humor or enjoyment or sadism sometimes with Saturn ascendant. Also, Saturn rising people, Saturn in the first house gives the self-sustaining one. It gives the goat spirit. It gives great fuckers, great climbers in many senses. It gives a very naughty, playful side that is often under the black, tight tuxedo. And it also quite often gives a shiny, sheeny, silky person in some sense. Saturn ascendant can be intensely fantastical, can be deeply private, and is the original, protective, sincere one as well. We have here the provider of happiness, actually. It's almost like a, if you know Werther's Originals, this candy, and in the adverts often will be featured a grandfather type character, and it's like Werther's Original grandpa vibes, like the provider of happiness in that way, the provider of love in that way. I forgot that I was chewing gum, actually. That was weird. Anyway, also Capricorn or Saturn ascendant is the star. But of course, we get lots of Capricorn connotations here because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. But yes, the star, you are a star in some sense, and you are often marveled and maligned, or you could be hyper marveled or hyper maligned. It really just depends how it goes. But there is some kind of star sense to Saturn ascendant. All right then, Saturn in the second house. We've got here the stingy or reticent energies and qualitative over quantitative. We have the incisive contributor to conversations or dynamics or projects. We have troubles and challenges with money or material or like stuff. Maybe stuff is always breaking. We have also organic or whole food consumption. We have sometimes a preoccupation with or focus on or love of sour foods or astringent foods. We have here planters and gardeners and chemists, because second house is associated with planting seeds and like mixing and putting things in to get something out. And we have the hesitant one as well, being hesitant to say too much, because we have Saturn, which is that restrainer, the scythe in the house of what we put into things. So it could be more reserved, basically, or hesitant. We have the patient investor, or people who are into or conduct long-term investments. We have philanthropists here and charitable people. Also similar to Saturn ascendant, that can be something, or Capricorn rising, charitable people. We have the clock watcher as well. And that could be for the good, bad, or ugly, right? You could be too into timekeeping, or you could just be an excellent person who's always on time or consistent. Again, kind of these stereotypical Deutsch vibes. Um, Also, Saturn in the second house can give bad intentions, violent actions, because we're putting a malefic in the house of input. So that's always something to look out for. We can have here squalid lifestyles. We can have minimalism. We can have Saturnian occupations such as managers, landlords, judges, taxmen, women, people, woodworkers, divorce lawyers as well here, and builders, bricklayers, engineers of all sorts. And the livelihood as well with Saturn in the second house can give great reputation somehow, especially if that patient long haul energy or approach has been put in. And we have the administration and handling of other people's stuff, like holding their stuff literally sometimes. The bearer of stuff, perhaps. We have also the father or parent-like energy put into things. So maybe in the group or in relationships, you take on this kind of zaddy role. There can also be a lot of dark brown or black colored possessions. And the father can be very close by somehow with Saturn in the second house. Also, this person can be slow to invest or basically conservative. And there can be serious expenses or like anxiously pouring money into something, like always obsessed with savings or worried about saving, or like insurance, always making sure you're putting stuff into your car insurance or your health insurance or life insurance. I wouldn't be surprised if Saturn in the second house, especially if you're Capricorn rising or Aquarius rising, I wouldn't be surprised if you got things like life insurance or pensions earlier than other people around you. Finally, or also you can be like an excellent rainy day hoarder. So basically, this serious expense anxiety can make you great for saving for those rainy days, or hoarding things for rougher times. Maybe you fill your cupboards up with lots of stuff, tins of beans and all that jazz, tins of mackerel. You can also be finally a keeper of dark secrets or like a sensitive data handler of some sort. All right, then let's have a little gander at Saturn in the third house. So we have siblings here, and siblings being deceitful. Or siblings are bosses in some sense. Maybe they are secretive, they are harsh somehow, they are serious. Also, this can give for the native less siblings or no siblings, or there's some kind of denial or suffering or cut off when it comes to the topic of siblings. Saturn in the third house can give a gloomy person or like pessimistic ways of relating. It can give also a careful communicator and a person of few words, because the third house is how we relate, how we communicate in our localities, in our immediate surroundings. And here we have then also sullen surroundings somehow, or a liking for dimmer spaces or darker spaces. This is like northern living. Maybe if you haven't already, you would love places like Scandinavia, or just somewhere where it's darker more times of the year than light. Also, Saturn in the third house can bring few friends, or a father is like a friend or a sibling to you, or a father is nearby somehow again. Also, we have people who can be touched by the fae. We have a cursor or a petty person. We have a Mimi. Of course, a malefic in the third house can just be someone who's very impish, a troll. This can be living or being by the sea or the water as well. This can also give teachers of material crafts, so things like woodwork, metallurgy, I don't know, sculpting. Um, Also, it can give a very accusatory way of relating. It can give a collector of unwanted things as well, or a scavenger. It can give someone who adopts people around them, whether that be literally they're adopting kids in the community, or they kind of take under their wing in a very serious father-like way people around them. This can bring a financial advisor as well, or a wise person in some sense. Also, I get here for Saturn in the third house, risk assessment. We also have a judgmental way of relating, or a kind of humbling of others. These people can be very quick to put people in their place. This can be somebody who outs or exposes others as well, in the sense of their like profession or occupation or their hobby even. Like you could be some sort of investigator or journalist, reporter. This can give writers as well, yes, because Saturn is the god of patience, and to write properly, to produce and publish, you need a lot of patience. And also this can produce skeptics. And finally, Saturn in the third house can give like damp or unhealthy surroundings. I would watch out for things like mold or not getting enough light in your house, in your space, and whether or not that is like actually affecting you on some level. All right, then the fourth house. So this is the father sometimes is lost or buried or returning from the past in some sense. The father is a mystery maybe to you, or there's some kind of big secret when it comes to the father. And again, like with Saturn in the third house, there can be these impish forces, but for you, it's more like the impish forces seemingly come from nowhere, and they kind of they are keeping you in check and your life and your actions and decisions. So you can often get quickly checked by spirit, by the universe, for your bad deeds. Your house or your home can be a dark brown or black color, literally. Maybe it's like very dark wood, I'm getting. Also, it could be by or on the water, or that's kind of your dream home, or that's where you would feel most rooted or at home, because the fourth house is the house of where we are rooted. And often inexplicably, you know, when you just end up somewhere in a space and you can't describe why, and maybe you've never been to anywhere like that, but all of a sudden you know that you just feel so comfortable or at home in the zone. It's your vibe, kind of vibe. Also things like wooden houses, stone houses, lead houses. I mean, that's most houses, but like there could be some extra focus on or love for these materials when it comes, or like emphasis, yeah, on those materials. Also, the house or the home could be somehow solitary, little house on the prairie, solitary cabin in the woods, or maybe you like to have a little camper van, or a tent even, that's in a space that has very few or no people around. Now, with Saturn in the fourth house, there could be a sorrowful past. There could be also accusations coming from the past later in life. There could be also like a digging up of somebody else's treasure. This can be in very literal senses or in other senses. This is the mysterious conditions or illnesses as well that relate to things like kidneys, joints, bones, and teeth, and shins, and coughing, like, you know, like mysterious coughs and stuff. Again, like I mentioned with Saturn in the third house, look out for things like mold or like bacteria that could be in your actual home and making these conditions arise. Now, Saturn in the fourth house can give somebody who lives at their workplace. It can give somebody very serious about things like roots and investing in people as well, or investing in things, it does give a kind of enduring love, Saturn in the fourth house. And often you might not know why or how all this love kind of pours onto or into something, but it does. It's very enduring. It's very blind in a sense, because the fourth house is the house of blindness in a way. And it's a very unconscious, arguably the most unconscious house in the chart. Also, with Saturn in the fourth house, the native can be brought down by or ashamed of their past or their ancestry. And it can also give historiographers, archivers, time travelers, like history reenactors, history documentary presenters. You could just have been really into history at school, like a proper history geek. Also, it gives reconstructionists, and there's all sorts of reconstructionism in all sorts of fields. That can be in digital senses, physical senses, surgeries, all kinds of reconstructionism can be brought about when we have Saturn in the fourth house. It gives also recycling, especially if you have Saturn in Scorpio, for example. Retrieving, divers. It gives gatherers, especially like, you know, those mushroom gatherers, herb gatherers, people who have those things as hobbies because those hobbies or interests make them feel very rooted, or there's just some kind of very unconscious or even deeply ancestral reason for their doing that. And also it can give those people who feel very oddly at home when they're at sea. Finally, Saturn in the fourth house can bring guardians of the family or carers of the mother. So this person might have a responsibility that arises maybe later in life, especially around the Saturn return, where they have to care for their mother more than they did before. And this can also give tending to graves and shrines and ancestral spaces. Okay, finally then, Saturn in the fifth house to conclude part one of this Saturn through the houses mini series. Saturn in the fifth house then, this gives less children or no children, or there's some kind of denial when it comes to children, and also pets, because the fifth house is where we have pets, all the pets that you have for recreation or pets as part of the family, right? Pets that you kind of love, not pets that you're breeding to eat or pets that you're making work in the farm. No. This also can make the children somehow Saturnian. So go back to the beginning of the video or look at my Saturn in Pisces videos where I go a bit deeper into Saturn the God, but somehow they're gonna be Saturnian. It can also bring someone to be quite a calculated risk taker. Now, it's interesting. It could be like the corporate banker who skydives in their free time. This also gives lovers of wine, because Saturn does rule or is associated with wine as well, and corn and fish. And also the father of the native could have lots of good fortune somehow, be very eminent maybe, or be a very joyful, abundant type of person. Saturn in the fifth house can give a kind of glass half empty thinker, but I don't think it's like that serious, because the fifth house, even malefics in the fifth house are considered to be less malefic. So I don't think it's like super serious, but maybe you are a glass half empty thinker. This can bring still some struggles with fortune, because we have a malefic in the fifth house. So some things might need to be chopped or cut off or divided. It does bring also controlled pleasure. I'm thinking stuff like BDSM, that kind of thing. Also sports and games referees or supervisors or judges. You could be like someone who's not a player of the game, but overseeing, like a umpire at the tennis match kind of thing. Um, or a spectator as well. So at like, I don't know, certain clubs as a kid, you were more the spectator, or you were the referee or the judge of some thing in some sense. Also, these people are like the 5-year planner types. They are the long-term goal setters. This can give also a patient creator. It can give the novelist. I mentioned earlier, Saturn can produce great writers. I think it was in the third house, because you need a lot of patience. Also, it can bring nurses, especially nurses who are in hospitals that specialize in kidneys, like kidney treatment, lungs, joints, these Saturn ruled body parts and functions, skin as well, bones, teeth, nurses or assistants to surgeons and other professionals and doctors of those kind of realms. Also, this gives water sports, swimming, bathing, being a fond focus for the native, something just fun like going to the spa. And it can bring a very authentically bright or shiny thing about you. There's something bright, shiny about you, which kind of can make you successful or eminent. And it can make you, Saturn in the 5th house, a reliable friend. Again, we have this theme coming through of enduring love. This is the house of good fortune, which opposes the house of good spirit. So it's good on good on good. And we get enduring love here, actually, with Saturn in the 5th. Other things I get for this is like watercolor painting, whether that's literal or in more like spiritual poetic sense, but like watercolors, like combining colors, being a colorful person or enjoying the more colorful things. And we have here jewelers, we have here like people with what we call it the green thumb, like allotment hobbyists, also melancholic singers, people who get famous or eminent from singing ballads, or like sad folk music. We have generous people here and charitable people, because we're putting Saturn in the house of good fortune, and this is also the house of generosity, the 5th house. And we have the bringer of light in dark as well. This is quite a profound one, finally, but like Saturn in the 5th house can mean you are a bringer of light in the darkness for people, for yourself. You are an inspirer, you are an uplifter in some sense, or some part of your life will come eventually to be seen as very enlightening, inspiring, or uplifting for others. That's what I've got for this part of my Saturn Through the Houses mini series. Let me know in the comments if you have Saturn in one of these 5th houses, and even if you don't, where is your Saturn, and what do you find is expressed by your Saturn placement, and how do you feel Saturn conversates with you in your life, and how do you reflect on Saturnian themes? Lots of love, happy Monday Moon Day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.